Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it. Coaches, the JAMODI podcast is powered by Ballogy. Manage and measure your players' skill development and increase accountability year-round utilizing the Ballogy app. Boost inter-squad competition with drills backed by the National High School Basketball Coaches Association, including a 40-shot Ballogy skills assessment. Please visit ballogy.com/teams for information on how you can provide this resource for your team. I mean, obviously, when you have the type of success that you guys had this year, you said you have great talent, great players, but I would imagine you have great leaders as well. What's one quality that you see in great leaders?
Yeah, I think with basketball, with schools, with a business, I think when you look at people that have great leadership qualities, I think the first thing they need to have is vision. You have to have a great vision for the direction you want to take your people, your team, and I think it's important to dream big, and to let people know that you have big goals. I think kids nowadays, they're going to work a lot harder for you and do a lot better job when they have a why and they understand the why. And that's why you need a vision. I think that's probably the number one thing that a lot of people aren't intentional enough about. And you need to talk about it. And you need to talk about it a lot. 7 years ago, when I came to Lake Highlands, I stood up at the parent meeting. I said, we're going to win a state championship here. That's the goal. And people probably thought I was crazy. And definitely those first 2 years when we took a lot of lumps, I definitely think people thought we were crazy, but that never changed. That was always our goal. And here we are. And I think the other thing that great leaders always possess is, they have that vision. And then they also have a thirst for learning. I think this podcast is a great thing. I know for me personally, the best coaches I've been around have been the guys that are constantly growing with the game, that are constantly finding new ways to teach something, constantly finding new ways to run something. And so I think that's a really important trait as well. You have to have that vision, and you have to have a willingness to learn and adapt and grow. I think those two things are huge. And then the final piece is it's all about relationships. Like, can you build good relationships with your staff? Do they know you care about them? Do they know you have their best interests at heart? And the same thing with your players. To me, I think those three things, when I think about the great people I've worked for, I think about the people that I admire in whatever business it may be, they all kind of possess those three things to me.
Right on the money with vision. You have to, what is it, Pat Riley, you have to see the vision and then sell the vision. And obviously you've been doing that for 7 years there. I would imagine for most programs, like you start off your school year with guys like the vision for this year, our goal this year is to win a state championship. If you don't have that, like if you don't say it, even if it's not likely, because there's a possibility then a probability. Like there's a big difference between those two. But you have to have that and say that. But then I wonder how many programs it just kind of ends there. Because without the steps necessary, it's that book, Burn Your Goals by Joshua Medcalf. Without the steps necessary, you just have this wish that you want without a plan to get there. So what's the you have that vision, what's the plan that you kind of take your guys through, the steps to get there?
Yeah, I think that's where kind of year by year and team by team, you just really have to evaluate that and look at, where you're at. And yeah, that may still be the end goal and vision, but you may kind of know, maybe this year isn't the year it's going to happen, but maybe 2 or 3 years down the line, we have a legitimate shot at this. And so we've got to keep working towards that and know that, you got to keep taking that next step. So I think it's your job as a leader, as a coach, as a boss, whatever it may be, to kind of try to lay out that blueprint in an honest, realistic way, And then just how do you put your team in the best position to be successful? How do you equip them and allow them to showcase what they're good at, allow them, put them in positions to be successful. And that's the fun and that's the challenge.
Yeah, and you're right, because if you can put state championship at the end of the line, you draw a line on the board, state championship at the end, but they have to know those steps that it takes to get there. And that's where I feel like everybody, we can have that at the end, and then kind of that burn the goals mindset, almost erase that or work backwards to, okay, first day of the fall, this is how we're going to show up every day to our workouts. And then you can start to assign small attainable goals that ultimately help you build, so that at the end of the year, and even going to games, here are 4 game goals that we have every time. We want to have this amount of wins, or have finished this way in tournaments leading up to district. In district, we want to finish at this spot. Like all of these little intermediate goals, so that if you happen to be the coach like most of us at the end of this thing where we ended on a loss, we don't look at the whole season as a failure. We actually achieved a lot of our goals this year. Not the ultimate, but I think that's a way to where you can, that vision's necessary. Because I think if you don't have it there, the odds of it happening by chance are really small. But then you don't want the whole thing to be a failure in their eyes. So you have all of these, like in our team, we want to win at least one tournament out of the tournaments that we play. Obviously, winning all of them is great, but possible, probable is different. And so when we win 2 tournaments this last year, like, hey, that's a huge success, fellas. And that can start to build that momentum, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The second one is growth. Appreciate your kindness of this podcast. Not sure how many guys feel the same way that you feel. What other things are you learning from, or people that you are following?
I definitely follow people on social media, definitely get on the basketball coaches kind of message boards and watch a lot of videos, try to attend clinics. I definitely have found like some of the most beneficial things for me as a coach have been, picking programs, coaches that, I watch their teams. I love how they play, and trying to find a time to visit, maybe an athletic period, to sit down with them. COVID during that time, that was one of the sort of silver linings of that period, is it gave us like time to slow down, stop, and kind of do some more work on ourselves, on coaching and trying to get better at our craft. One of the things that was really beneficial during that time, I had a couple of coaches, Coach Pritchett from Shoemaker and Coach Martinez from Atascocita. We each sent each other 2 game films, and we had each coach kind of, hey, watch those 2 games, and if you were playing against us, what would the scout be? What are our strengths and weaknesses? How would you attack us? That was really cool and a beneficial experience to, like, get that insight from 2 really, really good coaches on what they saw with our team. And then you get to ask them, hey, I saw you guys ran this little thing, how do you teach that? What are you looking for? How do you get your guy, Coach Pritchett is so good about coaching defense. Like, hey, your guys are in such great stances all the time. What do you do in practice to, like, emphasize that? So those are things for me personally that have been, like, super helpful. And I'm always trying to read new things, watch new things, because the game is always changing, and you have to be up to speed to your kids have to know you're giving them the newest, best thing to help make them successful.
Coach, that's a great nugget, man, about sending game film to friends of yours, that outside of district, maybe even a different classification where there's no way that this could come back to haunt you in any way. But, like, honestly, where people that you trust, people that you respect, that can give you honest feedback. Because sometimes I feel like I can be blind a little bit to I see them every day. I believe in them. I start to think that maybe we're even better than we really are. We can do things that another coach looks like. I just don't know. Like, I had a coach come one time when we were pressing a lot. He came and said, I said, man, what'd you think of our pressure and our pace? He's like, I don't know if you can do that with the horses you have. It was like a gut punch, but he's right on the money. And I think that's a challenge, I think, for this spring and summer to send. I'm going to do that, to send film to some coaches just to say, hey, you break this down, send me one. Coach, I'm sure there's going to be other great things on this call, but that was a good nugget right there.
Yeah, it was great. We just hopped on a Zoom afterwards and kind of all, we all watched the two games and kind of each took our turns giving our take. And that was a really cool learning experience for me.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.